Hello,
Hello, hi, Tony.
how are you?
Good, good. Uh, spring break, yeah.
You have a chance to get caught up with your work, I guess, huh?
No, I'm falling behind. So, yes, this is the time. You're
Yep.
right.
Well, good. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I do see your screen.
You can see the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what do you have planned for this week? Are you going to get to have any fun at all?
Oh, no, no funds planned yet. Well, okay, so. Yeah,
No
I had
fun,
my
huh?
eye surgery. Yeah, no fun yet. I had my eye surgeries. Yes,
Uh-oh.
yes, I had a cataract surgery. I
Oh my
cannot see.
goodness.
I know. I cannot see things, and all my glasses are off. So it's horrible. Like I have so much difficulty to read anything. So I have a lot of grading that pile up, and then documents. So like my challenge is to read letters in the documents because my vision is not sharp enough yet. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear
anyway,
that. You're too young to have that kind of surgery.
well, yes. So it's not. Yeah, I had it was not the definite only resolutions to for my vision problems, but I chose to do it now than later because now
You still there? Candy?
they can correct all your vision problems.
Ah, okay. Well, Ronnie's here. Ronnie, can you hear us okay?
Yes,
And can you see the document?
yes.
Okay. Well, I think we should get started. Dick will probably show up in a few moments. I think that this meeting is
Okay.
going to go pretty brief. That's the kind of meetings we like, the short ones, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Ronnie, you like the short meetings?
I prefer no meetings, but short is
Ah,
better than
that's
long.
my style
Yeah.
too. Well, the
But
next best thing is the short one. So
I do
I
have
wanted, I'm sorry.
I do have an absolute drop dead deadline of 1:30. I have to leave to pick up my granddaughter.
Well, I have a drop dead deadline of 12:30 because my wife just told me that a contractor is coming out here to give us a bid on some projects. So I think
Okay,
I think
30 minutes. Let's go.
I think we'll be done. So Ronnie, I wanted to thank you very much for the superb job that you did in compiling the information that you sent out, not just with the last document, but the prior one. I think it's been very, very helpful to help us to get some perspective on things. So thanks a lot for doing that. Really appreciate it. And
Okay.
the good news is you made some recommendations here, and I think that all three recommendations are excellent. So I thought maybe what we could do is just to go right to the recommendations and see what we think, and if we can get concurrence on that, then I think we can move forward and be done quickly. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Uni, is that okay with you?
Let me, I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to look at the recommendations, so let me open up.
Okay.
But as for your agenda, yes, I agree.
Okay.
So,
Well, Ronnie had six chapters in the book that he wanted to make mandatory to cover, and I think that
okay,
they look really good. I would like to add a seventh one, and that would be chapter 11 on aggregate planning and master scheduling, because I think that no matter the organization, that's a really important topic for the students to understand, because if they're not doing it themselves, top management's going to be doing that, and that's going to pretty much bring together all the resources that they have to put together a plan that's going to go out for a couple years. So what do you guys think? And Ronnie and I are currently teaching chapter 11. Yoonhee, you're not, but do you think that we can add that to have a total of 7 courses or chapters?
No, no, I disagree. I
You don't want to?
feel strongly about, no, I don't want to make that mandatory. So my understanding is like, adding this selection of these chapters, the purpose of selecting this chapter is to make these chapters mandatory to be taught in this course, right? And I do not strongly feel about I strongly feel, yeah, so let me see. Okay, I don't want to make that mandatory. That chapter.
You don't have any chapters being mandatory at all?
No. I can agree. Okay, so I can agree chapter quality. I can agree inventory, introduction, competitiveness. Sorry, but I'm not. I don't agree. Chapter 3, forecasting.
Okay. And what's
because
your
my
reluctance on
philosophy is making less. Making less is better.
Yeah, but the problem is if you make less, you're leaving too much wiggle room for people to bring in other subjects that are then going to work against the goal that we have is to reduce
that
the
is
variance.
called the freedom of instructor's freedom.
Well, yeah, instructor's freedom can only go so far. It actually does not mesh well with trying to have a standardized approach that students can know what they're going to get when they take the course.
I do understand the reason why we want to standardize so that across the different sections. But however, that should not interfere with the instructor's freedom of instructions.
Those are
And
inconsistent.
also the reason why some of
Go
the
ahead,
chapters do, okay. So, and our selection of the chapters to make the mandatory for teaching should be directly mapped to the objectives.
Right, and that's something we're going to get. So let me offer this to you. When I teach a business class, I don't care what topic it is. Business is all about the future. Do you agree?
Yes.
So if you're not teaching people how to forecast, how can you plan for the future?
Okay, Tony. But forecasting, operations management, the mandatory course of operations management in this one, and only one chapter of going over forecasting basic techniques of averages for forecasting does not cover the whole topic. And also in operation jobs, I worked in operation jobs, and also I'm a scholar of operations management and supply chain management. Forecasting is not even a topic of a research.
Right.
So it's not even aligned with the area of research in this field.
Okay, I think we're maybe saying the same thing. So what we're trying to decide upon right now is the general areas that the instructors need to cover. And I think you're getting more specific in terms of the methods and the techniques, but I think that as students don't learn
I am focusing on the which chapters and topics are aligned with the objectives teaching. So basic learning objectives, this course definitely should cover.
Okay, again, you're getting ahead of the game here. All we're trying to do now is to agree upon the topics that should be covered in this course. And I 100% agree, and I will argue with anybody that forecasting must be a topic because it's all about the future of a business. Now, in terms of getting into the details, that's a whole different story. All I'm looking for right now is an agreement on the topics that are taught. So do you agree that the topic of forecasting is important that for all instructors to teach?
No,
You don't
not
think it's
should be
important?
included. Must, yes. I agree with the importance, but not should be the must be taught in this course.
Okay, let me ask you a question. If
That is not an essence. That's my belief.
if an instructor if an instructor does not teach students about forecasting in their BBA program, how are students going to learn how to do that?
Forecasting can be covered in other areas.
You said can be
Not
covered, but it may not
necessarily
be
in
though.
operations management.
It may
Yes,
not be
but
covered though. That's why we have.
I
Okay, look,
disagree,
I
period.
think, go ahead. I think what's going to happen then, if you don't agree, I think we're going to have to use another method of decision making on this. And ultimately, if we can't come up with a consensus among this committee, then I think that we're going to have to elevate it to a higher level of decision because it doesn't sound like you're willing to agree on this at all.
No, I do. Hey, Tony, you are being too aggressive. I agree with chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 12 selection.
No, I'm talking about forecasting.
I do not agree with, yeah, I do not agree with the chapter 3, making chapter 3 mandatory.
Okay, Ronnie, do you have anything to add on this?
Well, I think we're ignoring an important part of the discussion. When a class is not a prerequisite for anything else, then the instructor has more freedom to cover whatever they want to cover, especially when it's only taught by one professor. But when a course is like 3,200 and it's a prerequisite for other courses, then we've got to cover the topics that those other courses expect us to cover. Otherwise, we're not doing our job. We're not preparing students for the courses for which 3,200 is a prerequisite. And I know that forecasting is used in accounting classes. It's not taught. It's just used. It's used to come up with pro forma statements. I use it in service operations management, which has a 3,200 as a prerequisite. I think if we don't teach forecasting, we're simply not doing our job of getting students ready for the other courses that they have to take.
So and the counter argument to that is, Ronnie, so as you said, forecasting is touched upon and used. This technique of forecasting is used by many other the class subjects across the disciplines. So therefore, the forecasting, the basic technique of forecasting we cover in our operations management is also included in many other textbooks, other disciplines. So for me, forecasting
that's
itself.
That's an incorrect statement. Accounting uses knowledge of forecasting to develop pro forma statements. Pro forma statements are an important part of accounting. Accounting does not teach their students how to forecast. They expect their students to come in to the class already knowing what a forecast is and how to do the forecasting from 3,200. So if we say we're not going to teach it, we're saying we're not going to do our job. Accounting's going to have to do it for us. Just because a class uses forecasting doesn't mean they teach forecasting. I use forecasting in service operations management, but I don't teach it. I expect the students to have learned it in 3,200.
I do the same thing in 4004. If they don't have it, and that's my biggest complaint is that they don't have it when they come to 4004 and they're lost.
The other thing I wanted to mention, so I worked for 5 publicly traded corporations, and many of them were multi-billion-dollar corporations. At 3 of those corporations, as a supply chain management director, I did the forecasting for the entire organization because marketing did such a poor job of it. The other two, the marketing department did it, but the operations management department would not let them submit it until reviewed it. This is a critical activity in corporate America, and our students are being trained how to do this. So when they go into those environments, they're ready to do it. If we do not teach that class and people go to apply for a job, they are not going to be happy with the students not having the knowledge that we should have given to them. So I think that is a very compelling argument as well. And also, Yoon-hee, I noticed that you've been teaching chapter 3 in your courses. So I don't understand your reluctance why you don't want it to be a mandatory chapter.
So I teach this one, but for me, the forecasting techniques we cover in our chapter 3 is no more than weighted averages or regression method. We cannot move beyond for our undergraduate level, okay? So, but most of it, one, students hate that chapter. So I've been minimizing the discussion of forecasting techniques to the very minimum of weighted averages, and then, basic ones, even leaving out the regression method behind. Two, I agree the importance of forecasting in business activities, and it feeds into many other activities across disciplines and across the functional silos and organizations, as well as business teachings. However, forecasting is usually covered in an academic area. Forecasting is aligned with the management science field. In our KSU, management science is covered by the different departments. So my interest of teaching forecasting remain to the more of a concept and basic ideas, rather than going deeper into the actual techniques.
Yeah,
and
but again, I understand what you're saying.
So by making a mandatory, that makes this topic too big compared to for this subject compared to actual importance.
Let me comment on this. When I teach forecasting, I spend a lot of time on qualitative forecasting, which does not include any data. So it's things like Salesforce composite. It is also the Delphi technique. It's a lot of non-quantitative things. So again, you're getting into the details where we just want to talk about the general topic, and it may include quantitative elements as well, but it may also have a lot of non-qualitative. For example, I talk about why is there a need to forecast? What are some of the basic assumptions involving forecast in terms of cause and effect? All of these things are important, but you're just focusing in on the technical thing, and we're not talking about that. We're just talking about it being an accepted topic that must be taught in some way. That's all we're trying to get to right now.
And I don't think that whether or not the students like it is
I agree.
remotely part of the consideration. I doubt they like any part of the course, but
so I guess, so let me go back to the recommendations. So Ronnie had 6 recommendations here. I wanted to add a 7th one. So it sounds like forecasting and aggregate planning kind of go hand in hand, because aggregate planning is the next step after you come up with a forecast. If those two topics are not being taught, then students are missing out the most essential element of how operations management fits into an organization, which is predicting the future. And then how do you operationalize that future in a supply chain operations management context? I think both of those chapters need to be included.
Tony, let me correct something you said. I actually had 3 recommendations. Recommendation 1 was to cover 6 chapters. There are 2 other recommendations beyond that.
Right.
What you're saying is, I don't just nomenclature. I don't disagree with anything you said. It's just there are two other recommendations on the table as well.
Right,
But
but before we get to the other two, I want to make sure that we can get to the topics, because I think that's where the main source of the variance is coming from, as we talked about last meeting.
I don't have a problem with that, and I don't have a problem with including aggregate planning. I debated, I went round and round about that, about whether to put it on that list and make it 7 or leave it at 6. So I have no problem with including it.
So Yoon-hee, what do you think? I mean,
Yeah, I do have a problem. I don't want it.
yeah, so, you know,
And I don't believe that that is mapped out to the operations management of the
Okay.
field, and then that is not the appropriate reflection of how the academics and academic field of operations management research is moving forward, and then how the whole field of the conceptualization about operations management focus.
So if we look at the agenda item number 4 from today's meeting, what I'm hoping to do is to give a recommendation to Steve, and the recommendation will probably be that we don't agree on the topics, and here is why. Here's who doesn't agree, and here's why, and then we'll basically let him decide how we're going to proceed, because or he could facilitate another discussion, but we're
Or
not
I
here.
suggest we can, so we have 4 members of the committee, and then we do, so right now, so there are total 7 chapters recommended, right? Then we
6.
can vote on the.
There's 6. There's
You
6.
you wanted to add 1 more.
Right.
You said you
Yeah,
wanted to add
and
one
we could
more, right?
vote it.
So total potential. So we can vote, and then we can create this. We can reveal we can disclose the voting. So basically there are, so I'm being the pain in the ass here. So I am aware of it. So for me, I agree with the 3 chapters, no, 5 chapters on the ballot. And I just disagree with the 2 chapters, right, on the ballot. And probably you will have your own opinions. Then we can perhaps, then we can at least recommend those 5 that are absolutely agreed on across all committee members. And then there are some, so only 2 chapters that are not consensus. Then we can disclose the information up to that point. Rather than make it all or nothing.
Oh, yeah. But again, so let me back up here. So my role, so I am the committee chair of the Assurance of Learning for the Levin School. And in that capacity, my charter is to make sure that we have the right level of consistency and standardization that's going to help Coles and the university meet the assurance of learning expectations, as well as student success. So in that respect, when I perceive that there is something that's preventing us from achieving that, I'm going to make that visible. And right now, if different instructors are teaching a course different ways, then students are going to come out of that experience with different results. And that is not consistent with what AACSB wants to have. And I don't think it's consistent with what Coles wants. So I can't just say, well, we're going to go 5 out of 7. I think we need to have uniformity and agreement with the core topics, and we don't have that yet. So I'm not willing to
Tony, okay, I do respect, but Tony, I do respect what you say. I do respect what you say about AOL alignments. I fully understand and I fully support, and I strongly believe that we should be aligned with the support that what we teach should support AOL of this course. So what I'm saying is, then we should have AOL and all our chapters that we make mandatory to teach for every instructors present and for the future. In order to make that happen, at the expense of instructors' freedom, We need clear mapping of each chapter with AOL. I don't see that. That's where my hesitance are. And also I was part of this team at the different institution at the Georgia Southern University. I taught exact same thing, operations management there. And also operations management was mandatory course for all there as well, and also part of AOL. So every semester, every year, we also collected the data and trying to make the students learning consistent with the objective in order to assure that they're learning. So I went through this process already there in other institutions. And so I do understand the importance of it. But right now, I don't see how each chapter is mapped out with the AOL.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. If we were to bring in some executives from, let's say Coca-Cola and Delta, and they were to come and we asked them, what are your expectations for students going into supply chain? And they said forecasting and aggregate planning. How would
Tony, I don't believe that executives should, or any practitioners outside should determine what is the student's assurance of learning should be.
Well,
that's what
teachers
and the scholars of the field should determine.
Right, but the whole thrust of business administration is for people to go into industry and to be able to work. And if you're ignoring that, you're ignoring.
I'm not a university professor. I'm not a vocational school teacher.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a learning, help them to find their job in business and industry is important. But my goal, but for me, my teaching objective, one of my teaching philosophies is to help them to think.
So I guess in terms of what people have been talking about with student success, in terms of making their education a relevant experience for the real world, are you just ignoring that?
Tony, you are going off tangent on the discussions.
I'm not going off tangent. I'm trying to.
Okay, so that question, I don't see the relevance of that questions to the decisions we are trying to make right now.
The relevance.
I am not disagreeing anything. I agree with what you say. What we teach should be aligned with assessment of learning. This course is the need to achieve. Toward that end, we need to instill certain level of standardization in order to make the consistency across the instructors. But also, what I am again saying is, but the instructor freedom is also important.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we need to assure the learning of this course comprehensively. And it's basically, it's an integrated whole that has a starting point and an end point. And if we don't include certain areas, we could assure the learning of certain topics, but it may be to the exclusion of other things that relate to the whole, the consolidated whole of the course. All right. Well, I'm kind of at a loss here, guys, because if we can't get agreement on the main topics in the chapters, trying to go further into this is really going to be pointless. I think we need to agree with the highest level, which is what are we teaching? And I'm almost ready just to go back to Steve and tell him that we have this this disagreement that we can't resolve, and we need some intervention. What do you guys think?
Can we revisit? Can we start from the AOL of this course and then map out these chapters. So we do have this recommended chapters, right? Then
Right
in order to
now,
make this,
okay, to answer your question, Ronnie brought this up last time that we have a BBA, assurance of learning document, and there are, I think, Ronnie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 3 or 4 learning objectives from Management 3200 that relate to that overall BBA major. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't remember if it's 3 or 4, but it's 3 or 4. I don't have the document in front.
Yeah, and in my discussions, Yoon-hee, with Jomon, that needs to be revisited. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to refresh how this whole process is working. Jomon is new in his role, and I'm new in my role, and Ronnie has been the course coordinator for a while, and we're just trying to take this from the top to make sure that everything is flowing consistently from top to bottom in terms of having the course with good learning objectives, assessment methods, and then that course then supports the BBA. So that's what we're trying to do. So right now, looking at any AOL information, I think is premature, especially since we've had such a wide gap in the GPA given for this course.
Okay.
That tells me that the AOL for this course needs to be revisited.
No, I think so. So here's the biggest differences between the way of your thinking and the way I'm thinking toward the in terms of approaches to how to reduce the variations across and how to standardize. Okay, so my idea. So my way of approaches to this issue is that AOL. So important. So what our lower level decisions of selecting chapters that need to be covered across all instructors. That is a C-levels level of decisions. The C-levels level of decisions should be created in a way to support higher level of learning objectives. So higher level of learning objectives, we definitely need to want to achieve using from this course, by teaching this course. Should be clarified, and then we should make that map out with each chapters that we are teaching. And once that link is clarified, then we can make the mandatory across all instructors, while all other disciplines leaving all other areas at the instructor's discretion.
Okay.
To me,
So
that is
I
the
think
right way of going about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's how most organizational decisions are made, is that you have something at a high level that then drives what's going to occur at the lower levels. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I think, so maybe what we do now is, again, I think we're making good progress. We're discussing things,
Yes,
which is
I
always
agree.
good. So I want to go back to Jomon and take a look at the BBA AOL that for our major, and then I want to talk to him about how he sees the operations management piece, this course fitting in, and specifically making sure that the topics that we have in mind, that they are a good fit. So I think maybe that'll be the next thing I'll do. And once I have that conversation with him, then we'll reconvene and we'll continue. How does that sound?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think I love that idea, and I love the plan. And then once you have a better idea about the that level of the AOL of this course should achieve, then we can then map out each objective with the chapters we cover. Then we should have a clear ideas in our head on our side, as well as we have clear ideas to report to the upper level, to the department chair, as well as the AOL committees and above. So I think I like that idea.
The AOL for this course, there's 3 of them. They're very broad. They do not inform the chapters that we cover. We have identify and integrate macroeconomic environments, environmental factors in business decisions, identify decision alternatives and compare and contrast them using appropriate analytical tools to reach a defensible solution, and demonstrate successful collaboration in a team setting, which is the group project. That doesn't, you can do that with any set of chapters you want to do. What we're trying to do here is solve a specific problem, and that is that we have wildly different versions of this course taught, yielding wildly different GPAs, and McDonald's doesn't have discussions about how to make a Big Mac. Everybody makes a Big Mac the same way. This is not an academic freedom issue yet. This is teaching a course that the university says needs to be taught and needs to cover material to support the courses that it supports. All of us have the same textbook. This is a standard course. It needs to be taught in a fairly standard way, and not with people going off on all these wild tangents. This is just not the way business operates. We know better than this. We know how to do this.
So Ronnie, I hear what you're saying. I completely agree. What I think though is still, and this is, I think, relates to everything we said, is there has to be some, we could call them a caretaker or a gatekeeper or whatever you want to call them, that looks at the big picture of the BBA major. And included in that major has to be something about forecasting, and has to be something about high-level planning, because every organization has both of those things. So whoever that person is, it could be Jomon, it could be Robin Sheremy. We need to say, where does the forecasting and the planning come from? Is it coming from accounting? Is it coming from some other course, or is it coming from operations management? If they say operations management, definitely, then that tells us what we need to know, that we have to include it in our class. If they say, well, it could come from this or the other, then that's a different story. But I think I want to get 100% consensus here. I don't like to have dissension in our discussion here, and I think it's healthy for a while. But ultimately, I want to go back to Steve and say, look, we have an agreement. We think this is going to make things a lot better in all ways. I want to do that. And I think that discussion with Jomon or Robin may seal the deal, and then we can come back together and we can do that with clarity and with unanimity.
Yes, then I will have a better guidance to make the decisions and assessment of my own in terms of what should be included in the chapters and lower level. Okay.
Yep. So
because then I will have assurance that my decision, what I do in my course, will support what the department and university try to achieve using through this course. Okay. So yeah.
So Ronnie, are you okay with me going back and taking that step?
Sure.
Dick?
Yeah, I don't have any objections. Just to change the conversation a little bit, I agree with what you said, but I want to go back to the other 2 recommendations that Ronnie had. We haven't talked about those at all.
Well, recommendation number 2 really is lower level. I think we can wait until we come up with
Well, Ken, I wanted to talk about that more holistically. I agree with the recommendation. What I would like to do, once we get concurrence on the topics, I would like to investigate the best practices that instructors are using to teach this class. Ronnie, when we talked last time, one of the best practices is to include the homework assignments from Connect. I would like to talk to you one-on-one, and to Uni and to whoever, and collect the best practices. So then, once we have the 7 topics, and this relates to the academic freedom that you and he's talking about, then instructors can pick from the best practices that are going to give them the best assessment methods to teach the 7 or 6 chapters. So what do you think about that idea?
Okay, yeah, I think I like that idea.
You know, the online course that Ronnie set up is excellent as it stands, in my opinion. And you know, you guys looked at my stuff, and I've modified it. You know, I didn't think they were getting enough spreadsheet time and stuff like that, so I brought in another online simulation for them to work through, so they understand the flow and how the data is important and how to calculate it using Excel, etc. But that's my add-on. That's not a change to the base. So what we might want to consider going forward until we have the top-down guidance, because that's going to be a while. And
I don't think it's going to take that much time. I'm going to make it a priority.
No, wait a minute, Tony. Wait a minute, Tony. I think that when you're talking to Robin or to Jaman, they're not going to be as knowledgeable of 3200 or what the expectation is and the delivery of it as we might be, and other people who teach the course. But may want to recommend you say, wait a minute, the stuff that is baseline, the stuff that's Ronnie's laid out already with the online exams to back up the learning process, that consists of a percentage of what a professor has to deliver, whether that's 70, 80%, I don't care. But at least that part is stable. And then professors can add the other percentages, you know, another 10% is their add-on to the deliverable. And that might make, at least until the AOL is confirmed and we can also get a consensus on what that consists of, that might be a way to ensure that we do a little bit of variance, I guess, narrow the Six Sigma down to maybe 3. You know, maybe we'll get closer to being alike. Just for consideration.
Well, I think that whatever we do is not going to be rolled out until the fall, because I think obviously we can't do it now, and I think we have time. You know, let me paint a scenario to you. So Robin Sheremy probably talks to a lot of people in industry when she's out and about. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree, but we're talking about baselining stuff.
Right, and what I'm trying to say is, if somebody asked her,
and
if somebody asked Robin, well, how do you guys teach forecasting or something like that? She probably has an answer. She'll probably say operations management. I don't think that she is without understanding of how the main topics fit together in the major. So I don't think that they're going to like look at us like deer in the headlights. I think they're going to know how that contributes to the big picture. But I'm not disagreeing with you.
I don't disagree with that. But my piece is that we are having this discussion, and you're on the bubble, so to speak, because we have this great variance in our deliverables, and it has been a pain in my side when I was teaching 4004, the old way, because students did not arrive with the basic skill sets in 3200. They just didn't. And the answer always was from the tutors that none of the professors teach anything the same way. And so consequently, you get a hodgepodge of deliverables. That variance has been with us for years. And the reason I ended up teaching 3200 was because I complained about it at 4004. And Robin says, well, go teach it and see what the problem is. And so again, we know that is a key piece of everything we do, and especially on the using 3200 as the entry level for non-management majors, basically non-business majors, to get into the operations supply chain certificate and minor. Then then they have to leave that with a set of skills, a toolbox, and the knowledge on how to use the tools in the toolbox. And
Well-
so reducing the variation has a lot to do with, there are certain things, and I agree with what's out there already. And like I said in the last meeting, I would like to add a chapter or two, but okay, that's fine. But I don't have to add that. If it's not important, then those chapters are not important. However, the chapters that are important, I can add those things that I've learned through business and things like that in my profession, like you guys have. And I can say, yeah, here's the basics, but here's some other ways to look at it. And so that's where I bring in my contribution to the conversation, not to set aside a piece, not to make something minimal, but to say, if you understand this, then, oh, by the way, you can understand some of these other things as you go into business. So I'm all in favor for saying whatever we agree to, and I agree with what's already there as a baseline, and say everybody who teaches this course has to have these components, and it consists of X percentage. And then after that, you can add to your conversations, you can add to your lectures, you can embellish, and you can bring other things into the classroom. But here are the baseline things that you've got to be able to deliver, because, oh, by the way, the other courses in operations supply chains are relying upon our students to have that skill set, at least minimal understanding of that skill set when they arrive in the next class.
So a couple things. In relation to the academic freedom, I think that can be facilitated by instructors adding additional chapters, because if we only go with 6 or 7 and there's 9 or 10 that instructors have been teaching, then that's going to enable them to add 3 or 4 more other chapters. And I agree with your toolbox analogy, Dick. And what I was trying to get at, if I could identify the best practices that the instructors are using, those will be the components of the toolbox. They'll basically be there for people to pick and choose in the right way that's going to help them teach the 6 or 7 courses, top chapters that we come up with. So I think that I can do that in parallel with us trying to get clarification from the top what topics should be included. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive or sequential. I see them happening in parallel. So you guys,
I think it's okay. So I understand what Dick said, and one thing that I experienced before at the Georgia Southern was at the higher level, AACSB pushed back about the operations management course, AOL, because at the Georgia Southern University, like KSU current AOL, we made our assessive AOL very broad. So then one of the round of our ACSB feedback session Dean got away from them was that they think our AOL was too broad that any courses can support. So then they were questioning, why then you make this one mandatory, right? So anyway, so the reason why I think a higher level refinement of AOL level and the mapping out to the each course and chapters is important, because then when we too broadly defined AOL, anything can fit in. Then later on, that can get hammer us by saying that, oh yeah, these skills can be taught by management so and so, then 3200. So what I believe is we really need to redefine our AOL that 3200 can only deliver and achieve.
yeah, I agree. And that's what we're going to do. We're on our way to do that. So one of the things that I wanted to mention that's kind of peripheral here. So again, my role as the as the committee chair for Levin's Assurance of Learning, is to make sure that we have all the right things in place that are going to support the assurance of learning for Coles. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking to the course coordinators, or 7 of them, for the 4000 series, and then 3200, 3100, and 4199, to make sure that what they have in their role as course coordinators is basically a procedure that's going to comprehensively support the AOL effort. And also, as Ronnie mentioned here in his third recommendation, is to help adjuncts and all professors pretty much be in alignment with what we want to do, and to support the effort. So that's something I'm going to be doing over the next few months. That's definitely related to what we're talking about here, because essentially what we're talking about is taking our discussions today and just putting them in a document that we have, that, because if Ronnie decides to move to a different role, we don't want him to take his course coordinator activities with him. We want to have a good document that we could then hand off to the next person coming into the role. And so I'm going to be working with the course coordinators on, essentially, I'm just going to facilitate that process, where I want them to identify what they think they should be doing in their role to help people teach and develop and teach the course, and also to support AOL. So that's coming around the pike here, but that's like I said, somewhat of a tangent and somewhat later. So to wrap up, because I'd like to go out and help my wife, because she's got our granddaughter out there. So I'm going to talk with Jomon, and if necessary with Robin and Steve, to try to get clarification on how 3200 fits into the BBA major. And once we get that clarification, then we'll have a better path forward. And meanwhile, I'm going to talk to the instructors to try to understand what the best practices are, so we have that as well. So I think that's all I wanted to discuss today. Did anybody want to bring up anything else?
Which instructors are you going to talk to?
Well, I'd like to talk to Yoon Hee and Ronnie, because I noticed in the past that the variation between what I was grading and what they were grading is pretty wide. And right now, I know it was because I was not including the homework from Connect, and also I was putting too high of a emphasis on the group project. So I've already made some adjustments, but I want to find out from everyone, if possible, how they grade and what they do.
Yeah, I think according to the data, I'm a miser of the grade miser. I'm a worst S in the pack. My GPA was lowest.
Right. So I want to find out how you did it. So that may be something that other instructors want to be able to do as well.
Well, I think that, the other instructors are the primary instructors on the courses that really rely upon our deliverable. And I think that it's like anything else. You need to test your customer. Our customer is not necessarily the student. Our customer is, the advanced courses that derive, allow for the critical advanced thinking, assuming that they have the basics. And if they don't have the basics, they're taught teaching the basics again. Yeah, and they're not allowed to deliver at that level.
That's a good point, Dick. And so I would probably talk to some of the 4004 instructors as well, in terms of, are their expectations being met? So talk to the 3200 instructors and the customers of the courses. I want to get it from the horse's mouth, if you want to use that term.
Well, the 4004 is in flux. It's not being taught, and it's not going to be taught the way it is in the catalog right now. Stuart has turned it into a Power BI type of a analytics course. So they're just dealing with how to how to evaluate data,
Yeah.
and how to make good presentations.
Well, and the point is, if what's in the catalog right now that identifies 3,200 as a prereq, if that's no longer valid, then we need to change things because it's not accurate. I mean, a student
Well,
taking
it's-
4004 will expect something different. So we need to make
Yeah,
sure
it's
that everything's
just a
current.
point of information. It is being changed. The current 4004 is going to be an analytics class,
Right?
and it will show an analytical deliverable at 4004.
But is that going to be the case for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, in fact, I think that was probably the prime driver for the submission that Doug put in, that change, with all the changes that were taking place. And there was also a curriculog entry into it to change its learning objectives and its deliverables.
So how does 3,200 then relate to that course then?
Don't know. I don't
That's
know.
what we need to find out, because again, Ronnie's point, and it's a good one, is that when we're teaching 3,200, we're mindful of how that's going to be applied to subsequent courses. But if it's not accurate, we need to know that, because then we're operating on a false assumption.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else anybody wants to bring up today?
No.
That's all for now. Great job. Great job, Ronnie. Thank you. Great job, Tony.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for being an ass.
I think that we're again, everything we've done so far has been value added, in my opinion, and I think we're going to end up with something that's really great. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and have some free time, and I will we'll reconvene after I have some more information.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Have all the great spring break all.
Okay,
Okay.
talk with you later.